Dr. Francis Collins, Director of the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Collins, it's always good to have you. Let's talk about what's going on here at home and these variants. Right now, are we vaccinating at a pace that will outrun the spread of these variants?
Well, that is the right question. And we could be at the rate we're going now, as you just heard, something like 3 million immunizations per day, 110 million that have now been administered, close to 30% of the population over 18 that's now had at least one dose. We're on a very nice upward trajectory. And boy, do we need it, because that particular variant that is causing such difficulties now in Europe, called B117, is also here in the U.S. and particularly, I might say, in Florida, where you just heard that report, which is a cause for all of us to be a bit alarmed. But the vaccine works against that variant. So the best protection we have is sort of twofold. One is get everybody vaccinated as quickly as possible. And meanwhile, do everything we can to prevent transmission of cases from people who may have no symptoms but could still be spreading this variant to others nearby, which means wearing the mask, keeping that 6-foot distance, and oh my God, Florida, stay out of the bars with your masks off. What are you doing? This is the exactly wrong thing to do at this moment if you don't want to end up where Europe is.
Just stay outside on the beach. It looks so lovely there. You don't need to go inside. What about the poll that we talked about at the very top of this show, showing the vaccine hesitancy among Republicans? Half of Republican men who voted for Donald Trump in 2020 said they're not going to get the vaccine. Can we get to the numbers we need in this country to reopen safely, to go back to normal, if those folks don't do it?
I mean, isn't this weird? If you were an alien who just landed on this planet and you looked to see what was happening with the pandemic and you were trying to find out who's accepting the vaccine and who isn't, and it turned out your political party was a major factor in whether you decided to roll up your sleeve or not, does that make any sense? No, but it's a reflection of how so many things in our country have been overshadowed by this polarization that relates to politics. Gosh, people, let's just look at the data, look at the evidence. Republicans are smart people, too. When you look at what we know about the vaccines that have been approved in the U.S., Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, the evidence for safety and efficacy is overwhelming. Why would you say no to something that might save your life and might actually keep you from giving this to somebody else more vulnerable than you? This is about something we have to do together. This is the time to love your neighbor and roll up your sleeve.
So the part of the argument that people will say is, hey, listen, I think we'll be at herd immunity. Enough other people will get vaccinated that we'll be fine. Is there such a thing as herd immunity when a virus like this is mutating as rapidly as it is because so many people have it?
The best way to keep the mutations from being even more widespread and more numerous is to make as many people as possible immune and to prevent more infections. The virus doesn't mutate unless it has a person to replicate in. And the best hope we have then is for rapidly speeding up our vaccination trajectory. I just don't know how people could basically say, well, that's somebody else's problem. If it's going to be the future of our communities, our nation, our world, aren't we all in this together? Isn't this something that we all need to agree to as a shared responsibility to try to stop this pandemic? We've got the science. We can do it. For heaven's sake, let's not leave those vaccines on the shelf when they could be stopping this really diabolical virus from killing more people.
Well, there's another argument that's being made. I won't name the person making it, but they're saying that they're saying that only the people that are vulnerable really need to get the vaccine. The young and healthy, or those who already had the virus, don't really need the vaccine. What is your medical, scientific response to that?
Well, I've certainly heard that, and I suspect if you walked the beach there in Miami from a lot of those young people, you might hear at least some version of that, like, hey, it doesn't look like even if I get this, I'm going to get that sick, so why do I need to worry about it? It's for the very reason that those are the people who are probably the most likely to get the virus, not have much in the way of symptoms, maybe no symptoms at all, and then give it to other people around them, their neighbors, their grandparents, all of those vulnerable people. They could be the vector. Is that really what you want to be? Are you really willing to say that doesn't matter? then why would a young person, when they get the chance, and again, we're working down through the risk categories, when you get the chance, roll up your sleeve, say, yeah, I want to be part of ending this, not just to save myself, but to save other people around me.
Listen, and if it's mutating, you never know how effective the vaccines are for those who have already gotten it. Let me ask you very quickly on the AstraZeneca vaccine. Europe has stopped using it because of a few dozen blood clots. Is that a good idea? I mean, is there science that backs up the halting of that vaccine?
The vaccine was certainly tested in large-scale trials in the UK and in other countries. The trial in the US is still going on. We have not yet seen the data from that. This is always a challenge when millions of people are getting an intervention like a vaccine, and things that are common anyway happen to some of those people by no cause and effect, but just because of coincidence. Then people may rush to judgment to say, well, it was because of the vaccine that that person got a blood clot. You have to look very carefully and say, wait a minute, is the incidence of blood clotting really different than it would have been anyway? In this instance, there is one particular kind of clot, a clot in the brain called a cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, which is less common, but there's still only been 6 or 7 cases of that. It doesn't sound as if that's particularly surprising given the number of people who've been immunized. But the European Medicines Agency promises they are looking at this really hard. They're going to have a report tomorrow. Let's see what they say.
Dr. Francis Collins, thank you so much for joining us today, and please do come back. We always appreciate your expertise. I know our audience does as well.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.